there is no I in team. It's a pretty old saying at this point. I'm sure your Little League coach maybe said that to you at one point. But apparently, some players in the NFL never had that little pep talk. Getting along in the workplace isn't always easy, but it is critical to the success of an organization, and an NFL franchise is no exception, especially with the insane amount of money that is now at stake for these guys. Everyone needs to be on the same page if the team is going to have success and subsequently get the players paid. Unfortunately, ego is oft present in the world of professional sports, and every team, without fail, ends up with a player or two on their squad that is all me and no we. And if it isn't pure self-centeredness, they find some other wonderful way to disrupt the team, whether it's creating headlines off the field, bickering with coaches, or any other number of goofy antics. There is no shortage of ways to be a bad teammate. So without further ado, let us get into it and check out every NFL team's worst teammate. Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray. It's always good to take anonymous comments with a grain of salt, but in the case of a teammate saying that the Cardinals brass had created a monster, especially with all the smoke around the Kyler's bad teammate fire, it just sort of feels worth mentioning. Between the video game addiction, the public meltdowns, and the playbook neglect, the overpaid, undersized quarterback has continued to rub his teammates in all the wrong ways. Atlanta Falcons, Bud Dupree. Atlanta desperately needed help on defensive line heading into this offseason, so I understand why they went after Bud Dupree, but his track record suggests that they might be getting a lemon. Back when he was with Pittsburgh, he publicly called out James Harrison, a longtime leader in the organization, and more recently, when he was with the Titans, he created a major distraction by catching charges for attacking a local Walgreens employee. Yeah, not exactly ideal. Baltimore Ravens, Odell Beckham Jr. While his wide receiver skills may be a bit rusty, there is no doubt in my mind that Odell will pick right up where he left off in terms of being a bad teammate. When it comes to OBJ, everything is always all about OBJ. And I don't expect him to lose a wink of sleep about if and when he tears apart the Ravens locker room in vintage fashion with his egotistical tantrums. Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs looked like he was turning a corner maturity-wise after pairing up with Josh Allen in Buffalo, but this offseason has been extremely troubling. It all dates back to last year's playoffs when he was visibly frustrated, and now he's blowing off offseason obligations left, right, and center. The situation is still developing, but it looks like we're going to play the same old song again with Diggs complaining about touches, his quarterback, and his coach. Just like when he was a Viking. Carolina Panthers, Matt Corral. As a third-round pick that hasn't taken a regular season snap, common sense generally dictates that you oughta at least be a good locker room guy. But Matt Corral missed the memo and decided to pull a diva wideout move and make cryptic posts on social media after the Panthers had Bryce Young first overall in this year's draft. Chicago Bears, Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool hasn't topped 900 receiving yards in any of the 3 seasons he's been a pro. But you wouldn't know that based on the way that he talks about himself in the media. You'd think that the guy's putting up Justin Jefferson-type numbers with the way that he bloviates. Yeah, not exactly signaling that you're a great teammate with that kind of delusion and self-centered behavior. Cincinnati Bengals, Eli Apple. Everyone in the NFL seems to have an issue with Eli Apple. His teammates obviously included. The loudmouthed cornerback runs his mouth like a madman and always seems to come up short on the field despite acting like he's one of the best D-backs in the league. I mean, one of his former Giants teammates called him the worst teammate he'd ever had. Indictments of someone's character do not get more cut and dry than that. Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson. This one sort of goes without saying. Deshaun Watson's very existence on the Browns make him the worst teammate in the organization. After catching some heinous allegations, he holds the organization over the fire for an insane contract and then doesn't do a damn thing worth writing about on the field? Yeah, you have to think his teammates are pretty sick of seeing him around the facilities at this point. Dallas Cowboys, Brandon Cooks. Yes, Dallas is a change of scenery for Brandon Cooks, but he is still the same guy that just recently got stripped of his captain status after signing that big deal in Houston. Not to mention that this is going to be his 5th stop since 2016. Not usually a good sign to see a guy passed around like that. Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson. Nothing says, I'm just one of the guys when you join a new team, like demanding you get your own office in the team facilities. And, you know, this isn't the first time that Russ has rubbed teammates the wrong way. It seems like not a soul from those legendary Legion of Boom Seahawks teams ever has a single good thing to say about him. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. If you're going to be the guy stirring the pot on the field, usually you'll want to be able to back it up with your play as well. But Gardner-Johnson seems to have forgotten that little detail. Plus, he is really just disappointment personified. Just ask the Eagles, who had their hopes up that maybe the young safety was going to be a big part of the organization going forward, only to have him peace out after a heartbreaking Super Bowl loss. Now that he's with the Lions, well, you have to think it'll just be more of the same. Green Bay Packers, David Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari has been a stud on the O-line for Green Bay ever since the Packers took a flyer on him in the 4th round of the 2013 draft. But it seems like with the departure of his longtime quarterback Aaron Rodgers has not only taken a toll on him, but also his willingness to be a good teammate. You'd think that a 9-year vet would be ready to bridge the gap in leadership, but instead, he's making comments about how the team will suck anyways. Yes, the comment is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it's still the last thing that Jordan Love or really any of the other young players taking featured roles this year need to hear. Houston Texans, Davis Mills. Not sure who's dumber in this situation, the Texans for wanting Davis Mills to serve as a mentor of sorts to their first-round pick CJ Stroud this year, or Mills for not getting in line and being a good teammate, especially when the writing was so clearly on the wall. Indianapolis Colts, Kenny Moore. I'm not going to say that playing nickelback and some slot corner isn't important, but the reality is that the role will never get paid like a true shutdown corner, much to the chagrin of Kenny Moore, who has now turned his contract into a major issue in the Colts locker room, going as far as to skip OTAs because he's trying to get paid in a way that frankly is just never gonna happen. Jacksonville Jaguars, Evan Ingram. After years of disappointing teammates and fans everywhere, Evan Ingram finally had a decent year now down in Jacksonville. And would you believe it, but the 28-year-old is now demanding a long-term deal. So much so that he skipped OTAs and essentially forced the Jags to use their franchise tag on him. Kansas City Chiefs, Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney has been surrounded with red flags ever since he broke into the league in 2021. He's called teammates out on social media and basically carries himself like a bona fide all-pro, when in reality, he hasn't even accumulated 600 receiving yards in 2 seasons. Yeah. Las Vegas Raiders, Davante Adams. Though Davante Adams seemed like he was a model citizen during his time in Green Bay, the tides are starting to turn for the talented wide receiver. Reports started to come out that he was bickering with the Packers management, and it's been touch and go with the suits in Vegas. No one likes dealing with their boss, but when you are one of the leaders on the team, you gotta find a way to get along and not create an awkward situation for the rest of the squad. Los Angeles Chargers, Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa is a hell of a football player, but with that seems to come with a hell of a temper. And he's gotten himself into trouble on the field with untimely penalties, and he's gotten into trouble off of it. Which, just has to be extremely frustrating to his teammates who continually have to answer questions about him and have been on the wrong side of some L's that could have been directly tied back to his immature decision-making. Los Angeles Rams, Cam Akers. Not exactly sure who Cam Akers thought he was, citing philosophical difference from the Rams head coach Sean McVay. Look, Akers is a nice player, but for him to think that he should or would get a say in how the offense runs, well, he respectfully is delusional. Surely his teammates were peeved, particularly once he stepped away from the team for these differences. Miami Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey, like Joey Bosa, is an unbelievable football player. But the former 5th overall pick is going to be on his 3rd team now, which, based on his talent level, well, it doesn't really make any sense. Clearly, he has been robbing people the wrong way in previous stops. I mean, he did basically try to fight his head coach, Doug Marrone, when he was in Jacksonville. Minnesota Vikings, Danielle Hunter. The Vikings D lineman is yet another big name causing drama in the locker room for skipping the mandatory minicamp. And of course, he is doing so after having only one good year after missing half of the previous season. New England Patriots, Mac Jones. Mac Jones ought to thank his lucky stars that Zach Wilson came into the league. Otherwise, he would stand alone as the bratty young quarterback who has gotten too big for his britches. Yeah, he has most certainly accomplished far more than Wilson, but he is not done nearly enough to wage war within the organization the way he did last year. I know his ego was probably dinged up after the whole Bailey Zappi ordeal, but that is not an excuse to ostracize your teammates and publicly question coaches in the media. Not the kind of teammate that you want your franchise quarterback to be, at least, that's for sure. New Orleans Saints, Michael Thomas. There is a lot not to like about Michael Thomas. For starters, he's proven to be a loudmouth, both in the traditional way by speaking to the media and by firing off cringeworthy social media posts left, right, and center. He's also another one of those guys that had a few good seasons and now wants to act like he's about to waltz into Canton once he retires. And if that wasn't enough for you, he got suspended for punching a teammate in practice a couple years back and has been in a public tiff with the Saints organization pretty much for the 3 years since about God knows what. It just is always something with this guy, and his chickens may come home to roost very soon. His performance has dwindled to the point that it won't justify having such a bad locker room presence around for much longer. New York Giants, Saquon Barkley. The former Penn State standout is an exciting player to watch when he's healthy, but that has been a major issue ever since his breakout rookie season. And now that he has finally started to perform again, he is threatening to sit out of training camp if he doesn't get a long-term deal. Look, I get you want to make money, but no NFL team in its right mind would give a 26-year-old back with his injury history the kind of deal he is after. That cannot be sitting well with his teammates who, have actually been the ones on the field while Barkley has been sidelined much of the last few seasons. New York Jets, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is the poster child for being a bad teammate. As a quarterback, he has stunk since the Jets took him second overall. All he ever does is make excuses, blame others, and, basically just mope around the sideline. And now that the team has brought in a legitimate quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, he wants to run his mouth saying that he'll make the future Hall of Famer's life hell in practice? Come on, man. Give me a break with that. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Carter. Never a good sign when you are widely regarded as the best player in the draft and everyone is terrified to take you because of your personality. But hey, that is exactly what we saw play out with Jalen Carter. And while Philly is holding out hope that a strong veteran presence can bring the best out of him, based on his antics at Georgia alone, he is going to catch the dubious distinction of being the worst teammate in the locker room until proven otherwise. Pittsburgh Steelers, Mason Rudolph. Admittedly, this one is a little bit more of a reading between the lines situation than the rest of the entries on this list. But there is something about the way that Mason Rudolph, who, need I remind you, is a third-round pick that projects to be a career backup, carries himself that is just extremely off-putting. His comments about getting back on the field last year when Pittsburgh's starting quarterback Kenny Pickett went down with a concussion are a pretty good example of this. Obviously, he's going to be excited to have an opportunity to play again after losing the job, but he probably could have toned it down just a little bit. Plus, there were the rumors about what prompted that bizarre fight with Myles Garrett, which, while still are just allegations, could not have sat well with the rest of his teammates. San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel. I don't know about you, but I have to think that if I was a lineman in the trenches, I would get pretty sick and tired of skill position guys like Deebo Samuel complaining about their contracts and usage all the time. Not to mention that he threw his quarterback room under the bus after the NFC Championship game this past year, saying that they essentially played with 10 guys after Brock Purdy got knocked out of the game. Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf. DK is a beast on the field, but he is the quintessential me guy and often makes boneheaded plays, gets unnecessary penalties, and all the sorts of things that rub teammates the wrong way because he is more focused on being the center of attention than actually winning games. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield. When this former number 1 overall pick was dealt to the Panthers, it was reported that he had some immature tendencies that annoyed teammates. And now that he's on yet another team, well, it seems to have been validated. Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill. I don't know how many times we need to see the same story play out in different cities. It never goes well for the veteran quarterback who says he doesn't want to mentor the young guy. Look, I'm not saying he needs to train him up to take his job, but just act decently. You know, instead of creating the sort of controversy and distraction in the media like Ryan Tannehill did last year after Tennessee brought in Malik Willis. Washington Commanders, Jonathan Allen. Regardless of Allen's pre-existing relationship with Daron Payne, you simply cannot go around punching your teammates on the sideline of an NFL game. Yeah, sure, emotions can get the best of people, but good teammates don't cosplay as Rocky Balboa on game day. But who do you think is the worst teammate on your favorite NFL team? What'd you think we get right? What'd you think we got wrong? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.